Get out. Right now. My father's voice cut through the ballroom like a whip. The clink of silverware stopped. Heads turned. My heels slid against the polished marble floor as his hand gripped my wrist. "You're making a scene?" I whispered. He didn't care. "You're not ruining your brother's big day just because you think you're too good to help." I blinked under the heavy crystal chandelier, surrounded by 200 impeccably dressed guests, most of whom had watched me grow up in this house. I'd arrived an hour earlier in a soft navy dress, nothing too fancy, nothing too plain, and smiled politely. I'd hugged my brother Noah, the groom, even though he hadn't spoken to me in weeks. But I had drawn the line at being handed a tray of champagne and being told to circle the guests. "Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin." I wasn't the help. I wasn't a server. I was their daughter. And yet, here I was, being dragged out of our own family mansion like a trespasser. "Let go of me, Dad." My voice cracked, but I didn't let it tremble. "You're hurting my arm." He didn't flinch. "What's hurting is our reputation. You think anyone here wants to see the family disappointment slinking around like she belongs at the head table?" My stomach twisted. My mother's heels clicked up beside him. Her diamond-studded clutch clutched tightly in her manicured hand. "Reagan," she said with that cold smile she'd perfected for photo ops. "This is Noah's day. Don't be selfish." "You're embarrassing us," Dad snapped, now turning to the crowd. "I'm sorry, everyone. Our daughter's been confused lately. Thought she didn't need to contribute. Thought standing around like a princess would be enough." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Some turned away. Others didn't bother hiding their smug little grins. Then Dad said it. The line that would brand itself into my spine for the rest of my life. "You're just a burden. You always have been." I froze. Then he grabbed my clutch, pushed open the towering oak doors, and shoved me, barefoot now, one heel snapped, out into the night. The door slammed. Laughter and string quartet music muffled behind it. And just like that, I was on the front steps of the same house I was raised in, unwanted, discarded like I was nothing. My breath fogged in the cool spring air. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the soft hum of idling valet cars. One of them, Ethan, a college kid who worked part-time, was standing by the stone archway. His eyes widened. "Miss Reagan, what the hell was that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was locked. The gates of the estate were still open. Drivers were waiting. I could have walked down, but I didn't move. Not yet. Because I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging to be let back in. I was doing something else entirely. I was planning. I wasn't going to crawl. I wasn't going to make some melodramatic plea for dignity. No. I was going to burn their perfect little world down, brick by brick. Not with rage, but with success. With cold, calculated precision. They thought I was weak. They thought I was finished. They were wrong. So painfully wrong. 24 hours earlier, I had stood in that same house, different atmosphere, and told my mother I wouldn't be coming to the rehearsal dinner. She hadn't looked up from her glass of Sauvignon Blanc. "You're expected," she said. "Everyone else is doing their part." Everyone else wasn't asked to carry cocktail trays. I replied quietly. "I'm not a server." "You're not much of anything, Reagan. Let's not pretend you're above anything." She had taken a long sip after that, like her words weren't venom. I should have known then. Should have walked away completely. But some part of me, the soft, clumsy human part, still thought they might see me. That part died last night. Back to the wedding night. I didn't sleep. I paced the sidewalk outside my apartment until sunrise. I couldn't stay still. Not when every part of me was awake and buzzing, hot with shame, cold with purpose. I turned my phone on for the first time in hours. Dozens of notifications. Some from extended family. Some from old high school friends tagging me in posts. "Can't believe Reagan got kicked out of her own brother's wedding. Y'all remember when she said she was going to be a startup founder? LMFAO. But one text caught my eye. From Kyle Harrington. Still want that investor meeting? We're in town. 9 a.m. Don't be late.
Kyle.
The CEO of Nextfin, the fintech group that had been circling my pitch for months. I had told him I wasn't ready.
But now?
Now I was on fire. 9:02 a.m. the next morning. I walked into the boardroom of the Marble Tower building in downtown Chicago with my chin up, my heels firm, and my deck sharper than it had ever been. No trembling hands.
No second-guessing.
Kyle raised an eyebrow as I slid the tablet across the table. Someone's wide awake today. I had a long night, I said with a tight smile. Let's make it worth it. For the next 20 minutes, I spoke like a woman possessed. Not desperate, determined. I laid out the payment tech platform I'd spent 18 months building. Showed the traction, the growth curve, the market demand. And I didn't blink when he leaned back in his chair and said, "You've got something."
Good, I said.
Why should we trust you to run it? I didn't miss a beat. Because no one else in this city has more to prove. He grinned. And just like that, I had my funding. 3 months later, the mansion. I stepped out of the town car in a dark-fitted suit, heels sharp, a single folder in my hand. The gates were open again, another event. Probably a fundraiser. My father's favorite kind of spotlight. I walked straight up the drive. Miss Reagan. Ethan the valet said, jaw slack. Hi, I said with a wink. Long time, huh? The door opened before I even reached it. Noah stood there, still in his tailored groom's suit, apparently reliving the glory days. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. What are you doing here? I didn't answer him. I brushed past, walked into the ballroom where I had been humiliated. The music stopped. And there they were, Mom and Dad, still in their spotless, smug little outfits, still holding court like they were royalty. I stopped in front of them. Everyone was watching. Mom's smile faded. Dad stiffened. I bought the house, I said calmly. Silence. What? The mansion. The one you've been bragging about for 30 years. Foreclosure auction. You really should pay your balloon loans on time. My father's face collapsed. No, you didn't. I handed him the folder. Inside, the deed.
Signed.
Filed. Legal. I looked around the room and smiled. This is no longer your house. The silence after I handed my father the deed was unbearable for them. But for me, it was peace. Why you? You're bluffing, Dad stammered, flicking through the folder with trembling hands. You don't have this kind of money. You've never had anything. I tilted my head slightly. Then maybe you should have asked what I was building instead of assigning me trays and calling me a burden. Mom's face was pale now. This has to be illegal. Nothing illegal about a public auction, I said, voice cool but calm. I bought it fair and square. Actually, I overpaid just to be sure you'd lose it. Noah stepped forward. Reagan, this is crazy. This is our home. I blinked. You mean the home you and Dad dragged me out of in front of 200 people like I was garbage? He looked away.
Of course he did.
Noah always looked away when things got uncomfortable. I looked around at the guests. Many of the same people from the wedding were there again. The same ones who stared and whispered. They weren't whispering now. Now they were silent, uncomfortable, because no one expected the quiet girl to come back stronger. No one expects the one you mock to be the one who rises. I turned back to my parents. You have until the end of the week to move out. Dad barked a laugh. You think I'm just going to leave because you're waving papers in my face? I don't think, I said. I know. Because if you don't, I'll have the sheriff enforce it. I already spoke with my attorneys. Mom finally found her voice. Reagan, don't do this. This house, it's all we have left. I swallowed the ache that tried to rise in my chest. For a second, a flicker of memory, birthday parties in the backyard, Christmas mornings on those stairs, tried to weaken me. But then I remembered the sting of my father's words. You're just a burden. You made your choice, I said. Now I've made mine. And I turned to leave. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Sharper. Ethan, still stunned, Open the car door for me. I paused and gave him a smile. Take care, all right? You really did it, he said. You bought their house? I nodded. I had to remind them. I'm not their maid. I'm their daughter. And I got in. 2 days later. I wasn't expecting what came next. Not reporters. Not headlines. But it happened. Some guest at the party had recorded the moment I handed over the deed.
Posted it.
It went viral overnight. Startup CEO kicks family out of mansion after public humiliation. I woke up to 3 million views, a dozen interview requests, and a voicemail from a talk show producer. But also something else. A text from Noah.
Can we talk?
I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to delete it. But another part, the part that had once believed in family, typed back. 1 hour.
Coffee garden.
Don't be late. At the cafe. Noah was already sitting when I arrived. He stood up quickly, clearly nervous. I'm not here to attack you, he said. Then don't. I replied, sitting across from him. He looked tired. Not groom tired. Guilt tired. I didn't know Mom and Dad were going to treat you like that. I swear, Reagan. I thought they were just being themselves. You thought I'd be fine being pushed around? I asked. I didn't think, he admitted. That's the truth. I was too wrapped up in everything. And I didn't stand up for you. No, I said, eyes locked on his. You didn't. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry. And he looked like he meant it. Still, I didn't let the moment soften completely. I'm not doing this for revenge, I told him. Not really. I'm doing this because they broke something. I can't pretend that didn't happen. I get it, he said. But what now? I sip my coffee. They'll move out. I'll probably sell the mansion. Noah looked up, surprised. You don't want to live there? I don't want walls that echo with humiliation, I said plainly. Some scars aren't worth walking past every morning. He leaned back in the chair, quiet for a moment. I'll help, he said finally. If you ever need anything, I mean it. I owe you that. I nodded. Then prove it. With actions. The movers arrived on a Thursday morning. Big, blue trucks lined the driveway. Uniformed men rolled dollies up to the front steps, where Mom stood stiffly in a pastel cardigan, arms crossed.
She didn't look at me.
Not once. I didn't expect her to. Dad came out 5 minutes later, slamming the door hard behind him, barking orders like he still ran the place. He didn't. Be careful with those boxes, he yelled. That's imported crystal, worth more than your paycheck. One of the movers looked at me uncertainly. I gave him a nod. It's fine. Just do your job. Dad turned to me, face already red. You're loving this, aren't you? Watching us get hauled out like criminals. No, I said flatly. I would have preferred to never be treated like I didn't matter. You always made yourself the victim, Reagan, Mom muttered from behind. You could never just be grateful. For what? I asked, my voice low. For being told to scrub, serve, stay quiet? For being shoved out of the house in heels and a dress like some kind of stray dog. That shut her up. They didn't argue anymore after that. Not because they agreed, but because deep down they knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. Later that evening, I stood inside the now empty mansion. It echoed differently, without their voices bouncing off the walls. Just me and memories. The room where I had spilled paint on the carpet when I was 9. The banister I used to slide down before I got too old for it. I could have kept it, renovated it, started over. But I didn't want to keep holding on to places that only reminded me of pain. I called the realtor the next day. Put it up for sale. At full market price. 1 week later, I sat in the studio chair as the cameras got ready to roll. The host smiled, clipboard in hand. We'll ask about the app, of course. But we'll also talk about the house. That okay? I gave a short nod. It's already public. Might as well be honest. The segment went viral. Again, people didn't just care about the business. They cared about the story. The girl who was dragged out of a mansion, only to come back and own it. And suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to me. Panels.
Podcasts.
profiles in business magazines. But even with all of that, I stayed grounded. Because I remembered what it felt like to be humiliated, to be invisible. And I never wanted to become what my parents were. That was my greatest fear. A surprise message. One night, after a long meeting, I checked my email and found a subject line I didn't expect. From Grace Carver. It was my mother. I hesitated, then opened it. Reagan, I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but your father's health isn't good. We're staying in a rental outside the city. If you ever want to see us, or him, I just thought I'd say something before it's too late. I stared at the screen for a long time. Anger rose first, but then something softer came after. Not forgiveness, but clarity. I didn't respond to my mother's email for 3 days. I kept drafting replies, deleting them, then walking away. What could I even say? Thanks for the trauma? Hope Dad's okay, but I remember every insult. Still, something in me couldn't just ignore it. So on the 4th morning, I drove. Not because I forgave them, but because I needed answers. Closure. The rental was nothing like the mansion. A small, dated one-story house on a quiet street. Paint peeling near the windows. No fancy cars out front. No valet. Just silence. I knocked once. Mom opened the door slowly. Her eyes widened slightly. She looked smaller. Older. Her makeup wasn't perfect. Her nails weren't done. You came, she whispered. I didn't smile. Where is he? She stepped aside without saying another word. Inside, the place smelled like instant coffee and dust. There were boxes everywhere. A half-inflated air mattress in the corner. Dad was in the back bedroom, sitting on the edge of a worn bed, clutching a glass of water in his hand. His frame was thinner, shoulders slouched. He looked up and froze. Reagan. I didn't sit. I stayed by the door. I heard you weren't doing well. He coughed once, cleared his throat. Heart. It's acting up. Doctors say I need surgery, but we lost insurance. Too many debts. I nodded once, arms crossed. Actions have consequences. He gave a bitter laugh. Still sharp. Still proud. No, I said. Just done pretending I don't matter. We stared at each other for a long time. Years of silence between us. Then he looked away. I didn't know how to raise a daughter who didn't fall in line, he muttered. You were always asking why. Always fighting back. It scared me. It wasn't fear, I said coldly. It was control. You wanted quiet, obedient. I wasn't that. His voice dropped. I know. Something in me cracked. Not open, just loose. I didn't cry, but I did speak. I'm not here to save you, I said. But I needed to look you in the eye and say this. You were wrong about me. Every time you called me a failure.
Every time you ignored me.
Every time you made me feel small, I carried that. And now I've made something you never could.
On my own.
Without your approval.
He didn't argue. Didn't shout.
Just nodded once. I believe you. And somehow, that made me feel heavier, not lighter. Outside. Mom was waiting in the living room. You're not staying, she said softly.
No.
I don't expect you to forgive us.
Good, I said.
Because I don't. She reached for something on the table. A photo.
Me.
As a kid. In a Halloween costume, standing by the fireplace. I kept this, she said. You always looked so brave. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't ready to share my hurt with someone who hadn't earned it. I left without looking back. That night, Noah called again. I heard you visited them, he said.
Yeah.
Regret it? No, I answered. I didn't go for them. I went for me. He paused. Are you okay? I thought about it. Not fully, I said. But I'm not broken either. The mansion sale. The buyer was a young couple, first-generation entrepreneurs just like me. The day I signed over the keys, I stood in the driveway one last time and let the memory go. Not the house. Not the money. The pain. It was time. 6 months later, I stood backstage at the Women in Tech Awards. I wasn't just attending, I was nominated. The category, Founder of the Year. And the room was packed. Hundreds of the same types of people who used to look straight through me at my parents' parties. Only this time they were clapping.
For me.
I watched from behind the curtains as they played a short video about my journey. Selective clips, of course. They left out the worst parts. The tray. The humiliation. Being dragged out in front of 200 people like a misbehaving child. But I remembered. Every second. The host smiled from the stage. And now, please welcome our final nominee tonight, Reagan Carver. Applause roared as I stepped onto the stage. I didn't need to fake confidence anymore. I walked like a woman who knew what it took to rebuild from ashes. Who understood that sometimes dignity means not fighting, but walking away and rising quietly. I took the mic, smiled. Then I spoke. Thank you. I know most of you know the polished version of my story. But tonight, I want to say something I've never said publicly. Not to sound impressive, but to sound honest. The room went still. I was told by people I loved that I was a burden, that I didn't contribute, that I didn't matter. Not once, but over and over. And for a long time, I believed them.
Some gasps.
Some people nodding slowly. But I kept building. Quietly. Without applause. Without validation. Because I realized something, your worth doesn't disappear just because someone else refuses to see it. Silence now.
Heavy.
Emotional. I breathed in. So to anyone in this room, or watching, who's ever been dismissed, belittled, or erased, I see you. You're not a burden. You're a force. And I meant every word. After the event, Noah met me outside the hotel. You crushed it, he said with a half smile. Thanks. He hesitated, then held out an envelope. From Mom. I raised a brow. She said you probably wouldn't open it. But she wrote it anyway. I took it. Not to forgive. But because sometimes closure is a slow thing. I'll think about it, I said. Also, Noah added, Dad's surgery went well. I nodded. I hope he finds peace. Do you think you will? I thought about that. Looked up at the sky. The same sky I'd stared at the night. I stood outside that mansion in broken heels, wrists red from where I'd been dragged. I already have, I said quietly. 6 weeks later, I opened the envelope. It was a short letter. Just 5 lines. I was wrong. You were never a burden. You were the one who carried everything. I'm sorry. I didn't see it sooner. I'm proud of you. Even if I don't deserve to be. Mom. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I didn't need their approval anymore. I had built something stronger than any house. A life where I chose my worth. Final scene. Back at my new apartment, I opened the sliding doors to the balcony. The city lights glimmered below. The world felt big, but no longer intimidating. I leaned against the railing, a glass of sparkling water in hand, and looked out. I had lost a family that never truly saw me. But I had found something far more powerful. Myself. And this time, no one was dragging me out. You'll regret this, my uncle sneered, loud enough for the guests to hear. You just embarrassed the entire family in front of everyone. I stood at the edge of the flower-covered altar, breath trembling. Not from fear. No, that had left the moment I made my choice, but from fury and heartbreak. My hands were still shaking as I held the bouquet, petals crushed from my grip. I could hear whispers slicing through the crowd like knives. She dumped him at the altar? She walked away from a surgeon? I looked out across the rows of white chairs and pastel-colored dresses. All those faces staring at me, judging, laughing, whispering. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I wasn't supposed to say no. Not to Dr. Marshall Evans. Ivy League, 6-figure salary, perfectly styled hair, and a family name that carried weight in New York's wealthier circles. But I had. Right at the moment the officiant asked me if I'd take him as my husband, I whispered, no, and when everyone gasped, I raised my voice and said it again louder.
No.
I won't marry a man I don't love just to make you all happy. Aunt Rachel stood up immediately, throwing her hands in the air like I had just spat on the American flag. What the hell are you doing, Madison? This is your one shot. Dad, red-faced and clutching his whiskey glass, hissed through his teeth. You ungrateful little girl. You think anyone will want you after the circus? I slowly turned to him. I'd rather be alone than chained to a life you picked for me. A woman in the front row scoffed. My cousin Megan. Her expression was all too familiar. Entitlement, superiority, fake pity. She's always been dramatic. Remember when she dropped out of law school for art? Oh yeah, another cousin chuckled. She paints sad little street murals now, right? Real success story. I said nothing, just turned away from them all, walked down the aisle alone. The same aisle I'd walked up 10 minutes earlier to applause. Now, silence followed me. I could feel my father's eyes burning into my back. You'll regret this, he called out again, voice trembling with rage. You'll come crawling back. I kept walking, but I didn't get far. Not 20 minutes later, just as I reached the edge of the estate's gravel driveway, barely holding my tears back, I heard it. Engines.
Loud.
Multiple. And then gasps. Chairs scraped. Heels stumbled over grass. Someone even dropped a champagne glass. I turned slowly, heart pounding in confusion. 10 black limousines had pulled up outside the gates, one after the other, like a presidential convoy. And then, he stepped out, dressed in a perfectly cut black suit, polished boots, sharp jawline, eyes like cold steel. His presence silenced the entire wedding. Even my father, especially my father. A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Is that? No way. Oh my God, is that him? I blinked hard. My lips parted, but no words came. Eli Maddox, the self-made tech billionaire who disappeared from the public eye 2 years ago after selling his cybersecurity firm for over $2.1 billion. And my former best friend, the same boy I'd grown up with in South Carolina before my parents ripped me away from that life and shoved me into finishing school. The same boy who once stood under a flickering porch light and told me, one day, when I come back, it'll be for you. No one knew we stayed in touch. No one knew we'd ever been close. And absolutely no one knew that I'd sent a single text this morning, 3 hours before the wedding, saying, I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life. Now, here he was, striding across the lawn like he owned it, not flinching at the shocked murmurs, not blinking when my cousin tripped trying to get out of her chair, not even acknowledging my father's clenched jaw and bloodless lips. He walked straight toward me, and without asking, without needing permission, he pulled me into his arms. You didn't make a mistake, he whispered. You made the first right decision of your life. And then, with the entire wedding watching, Eli turned to my father. I'm the man she chooses, he said calmly, like he was delivering a fact. And from now on, you speak to her like she's worth more than your ego. My father opened his mouth, and then closed it again. No words, no threats, just shock. Aunt Rachel fainted. Someone dropped a wine bottle. It rolled under the dessert table. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt powerful. Not because Eli had come, but because I had chosen to burn the bridge before anyone else could push me off it. Nobody moved, not even the damn string quartet. They just sat there, frozen with their violins midair, eyes darting between me and Eli like we'd just hijacked the ceremony and rewritten the ending. Is this some sort of stunt? My mother finally snapped, her pearls rattling against her chest as she stormed toward us. You humiliated your fiancé in front of everyone, and now what? This is your backup plan? Eli didn't even look at her. His arm remained steady around my waist, firm but gentle. She's not your pawn, he said without flinching. Not anymore. My mother blinked at him, thrown off by the tone.
Calm. Sharp.
Dangerous in its restraint. This is a private event, Uncle Tim barked. You can't just waltz in here with your little entourage of limos and act like. Act like what? Eli asked, finally turning his gaze on him. Like someone with the resources to buy this estate 5 times over? Or someone who actually gives a damn about Madison? Uncle Tim choked on his own breath. I thought so. I should have been trembling. I should have felt embarrassed, ashamed even, for the chaos unraveling around us. But I wasn't. I was standing next to the only person who ever saw me. Not the degree. Not the body. Not the resume. Just me. You've lost your mind, Megan hissed, stepping toward me in her strapless designer gown. You walked away from a guy who could have saved your reputation, and now you're clinging to a man who vanished off the Forbes list like a ghost. Eli smirked. Funny. I disappeared to protect my privacy. But clearly some people around here would sell their soul just to appear in a country club newsletter. That one hit hard. Megan's jaw clicked shut, and she stormed off in the opposite direction, heels stabbing the grass. I looked up at Eli. How did you even know where to find me? He gave a quiet smile. You sent me the name of the wedding venue by accident. A photo of the floral arches. I tracked it. Then I cleared my morning. You flew across the country for me? No, he said, tilting his head. I flew across the country to remind you who the hell you are. A sound escaped my throat, half laugh, half sob. And I swear, for a second, all the noise around us just fell away. Until, I demand you leave now, my father spat, stepping forward. Or what? Eli said, his voice soft but lethal. You'll call security? Go ahead. Let's see who they ask to leave when they realize who owns the company that manages this venue. My father froze. What? I bought them out 6 months ago, Eli said, like he was commenting on the weather. Turns out I like weddings more than boardrooms. He turned to me again, and his gaze softened. Come with me, he said. We can leave this circus behind. I looked around. The shattered expectations. The forced smiles. The hollow relationships that never really saw me as more than a trophy to be handed off to the next wealthy bidder. I dropped the bouquet on the grass. Let's go. And with every eye watching, every mouth gaping, we walked away. But as soon as we passed the iron gates, I felt the pressure tighten in my chest. Was that real? I asked him, breathless. All of it. Even the limos? Eli smirked. 10 felt dramatic enough to make your dad sweat. I laughed. And then cried. Because for the first time in my life, someone had fought for me. Not to own me, not to shame me, but to choose me. And that feeling? It changed everything. But what I didn't know then was this. The real storm hadn't even started yet. Because as much as I wanted to believe that walking away from my wedding was the peak of my rebellion, what came next would shake everything.
Lies.
Family secrets. And a truth I never saw coming. The ride away from the wedding was silent at first. Not awkward, just heavy. Like we were both waiting for the other to exhale first. I stared out the tinted window of the limo, watching the estate grow smaller behind us. My reflection in the glass didn't even look like mine anymore. Not the quiet girl they all used to corner. Not the people-pleaser in a stitched-up white dress. Eli sat beside me, legs relaxed, phone untouched. You okay? He asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. I feel free. And terrified. He nodded. Freedom usually comes dressed like that. I turned to face him. Why today? Why show up now? His expression darkened, just slightly. Because I've been watching from a distance for too long. Watching them drown you in guilt and expectations. Watching you fold for them. Until that message. It broke me. That message I'd sent hours before the wedding. I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life. He tapped the window. We're not heading to a hotel, by the way. There's something you need to see. My brows furrowed. See what? You'll know. The car pulled up to a sleek building downtown. Glass, steel, quiet elegance. We took a private elevator to the top. My heels clicked across marble until Eli stopped at a thick wooden door and unlocked it. After you. I stepped inside and froze. The entire space was covered in paintings. My paintings. Murals I had done years ago. Small pieces I'd sold online. Even sketches I barely remembered posting. I bought them all, he said softly behind me. tracked every seller, every print, every canvas. My hands shook as I reached out to touch a framed piece I'd drawn while crying in a subway bathroom 2 years ago. Why? He shrugged. Because they mattered. Because you mattered. And no one in that family ever saw it. I turned around. Eli, why didn't you ever say anything before? He took a breath, walked over, and held out a sealed envelope. Because I was waiting for the right time. But your father made sure I'd never get close again. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? He looked me in the eye. He threatened my mother. Told her if I ever contacted you again, he'd sue her for defamation and destroy her career. She was a schoolteacher, Madison.
He didn't care.
He just wanted you to marry someone suitable. Tears burned in my eyes, but they wouldn't fall. I opened the envelope. Inside was a photocopy of a letter, with my father's signature. Do not contact my daughter again, or I will make sure your family loses everything. She has a future beyond dirt-poor nobodies like you. The breath rushed out of me. I didn't know, I whispered. He told me you ghosted me, that you moved on, that I was nothing to you. Eli shook his head. I wrote to you every week for 2 years. He must have intercepted them. I clutched the paper, nausea rising in my chest. Why would he do that? Because your independence scared him, Eli said. Because if you loved someone on your terms, he couldn't control the outcome. And your family, they only value control. My legs gave out. I sat on the couch, the letter trembling in my hands. Everything made sense now. The way they pushed me into law school. The way they crushed my art. The way they paraded Marshall like a prize pig at every family dinner. They were never protecting me. They were grooming me to be silent. And Eli? He'd been the one thread of truth they tried to cut. I don't even know who I am anymore, I said into the silence. You do, he said, sitting beside me. You're just meeting her for the first time. I laughed through a tear. She's kind of a mess. She's kind of magnificent. We sat there for what felt like hours. No pressure. No timeline. Just truth. Until my phone buzzed. A message. Dad, come home. We need to talk. Followed by another. Mom, there are things you don't know. About your inheritance. About your grandfather's will. You're making a mistake, Madison. I stared at the screen. I think they're hiding something, I said. Eli didn't look surprised. I know. What do you mean? I hired someone a few months ago, he said, handing me a second envelope. To look into your family's financial records. My heart dropped. Inside were bank statements. Assets moved. Trust funds drained. Properties sold. Under my name. But without my consent. What the hell? I whispered. They've been funneling money from your trust for years. Your grandfather left you more than you realize. My ears rang. Everything I thought I knew, every dinner, every birthday, every forced smile, it was all covering something much darker. This wasn't just a wedding I'd walked away from. This was a heist. I stared at the documents in my lap, my name printed next to account numbers I'd never seen. Transactions made without my knowledge. Loans I never took. Properties I didn't know I owned, then mysteriously sold off months ago. My trust had been raided. By my own family. I trusted them, I whispered, my voice dry. I trusted them with everything. Eli sat quietly beside me, letting the weight settle. They thought you'd never question it, he said. As long as you stayed under their thumb. My phone lit up again. Another message from my father. Whatever he's told you, he's lying.
Come home, now.
This is still your family. I almost laughed. Still my family? Family doesn't steal from you and lie for years. Family doesn't sell off what's yours while making you feel worthless. I stood up, adrenaline surging. I want answers, I said. I'm not letting them get away with this. Eli nodded. Then let's go get them. We didn't call ahead. We drove straight to my parents' house, the same house where I'd grown up believing they had my back. I walked through the front door without knocking. They were all there. My father, pacing with a drink in his hand. My mother on the couch, looking up like she'd seen a ghost. Uncle Tim and Aunt Rachel stood by the fireplace, stone-faced. You need to leave. My father barked at Eli the moment he stepped in behind me. No. I cut in. He stays. We all need to talk. Madison, my mom started, her voice trembling with forced calm. There are things we didn't want you to know for your own good. You're sensitive. No, I snapped. I'm done being gaslit. Tell me the truth. Right now. There was a beat of silence. And then my grandfather's old attorney, Mr. Reed, stepped out from the hallway. He was holding a sealed envelope. I told them this day would come, he said slowly. Your grandfather left this for you. I took it with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. Madison, I knew they'd try to take what's yours. That's why I created a second trust. One only you can access, under one condition. You must walk away from any marriage arranged by the family. If you're reading this, it means you chose yourself.
Good.
The art is yours. The property in Charleston is yours. The shares in M&D Steel, yours. They can't touch it. Now go build something they can never steal. Grandpa. I couldn't breathe. My father's face went gray. Is this a joke? Uncle Tim snarled. It's legal, Mr. Reed said coldly. And effective immediately. They all started talking at once, loud, panicked, desperate. My mother tried to reason, my father tried to threaten, and my aunt accused me of manipulation. But I wasn't listening anymore. I looked at Eli, then at them. I see it now, I said. You never supported me. You supported who you thought I should be. And when I didn't fit that mold, you tried to cut me out. You're turning your back on your own family, my father hissed. No, I said firmly. I'm turning my back on abuse. Then I turned and walked away. They didn't follow me. They couldn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid. The sun was setting when Eli and I walked out of that house. I didn't look back. Not because I wanted to pretend none of it happened, but because I finally understood I didn't owe them anything. Not after the years they spent trying to shrink me into someone they could parade around and control. In the back of the limo, I opened my grandfather's letter again, his handwriting steady, even at the end. His words weren't just legal instructions, they were love. The kind of love that sees you for who you are, not who the world wants you to become. You chose yourself. That line stuck with me, and I was just beginning to understand what it meant. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of the Charleston property my grandfather left me. A sprawling, sun-washed estate with wraparound porches and a giant oak tree in the backyard. The neighbors said he came here often during the last few years of his life, away from the family chaos, just painting and feeding birds. Inside, I found more letters, sketchbooks, even old photos of me as a child, drawing on the floor while he worked.
He believed in me.
He always had. I spent the next few days getting everything in order. Ownership transfers. Meeting with the attorney again. Quietly pulling the remaining control of the steel company's shares he left me, shares my family had no idea were never in their name. The final blow came during the board meeting, where my father still held a ceremonial seat. He walked in confidently until he saw me at the head of the table. The board members stood up, one by one. Not for him. For me. Madison Wells, the chairman said, extending a hand. Majority shareholder. My father's face crumpled as if the truth had physically punched him. This is a mistake. She can't. She can, the chairman cut in. And she did. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I let the silence deliver the truth. Everything they stole. Every dollar. Every insult. Every ounce of control. All undone. Because my name was on everything now. A month later, I held a small art exhibition in that Charleston estate. No press. No headlines. Just music, candles, soft lights, and people who saw me. Eli stood beside me, his arm resting around my waist like it belonged there. Feels good, doesn't it? He whispered. I smiled. Feels like breathing again. He leaned in. You ready for the next chapter? I nodded. Because I knew now. Revenge didn't always come with shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it was quiet.
Calm.
Powerful. Sometimes revenge looked like peace. And for the first time in my life, I had it. on my own terms, with my own name. And no one could take that from me ever again.